Could psychedelic therapy be the key to unlocking the next revolution in mental health treatment? Or is it a dangerous fad that we're rushing into without fully understanding the risks? I believe it can help. And I went on an ayahuasca journey just over a year ago, and I want to share it with you. Believe it or not, what you're looking at in this video is actually related to my ayahuasca journey. If you're confused, allow me to shed some light. You're watching me put together a computer desk and chair and set up a place for me and my husband, which we'll be using to edit YouTube videos. The whole reason I have started this channel and I'm sharing my stories with you all is because that I actually did ayahuasca. Before I start telling you about my story, a few reminders. My channel is Human Woman Renee, and it's all about being human, which means to be vulnerable and true to yourself, which means I won't be holding anything back, and the viewer discretion is advised. And it's also about being a woman, which means being strong. I wouldn't be here now if I didn't have strength, and I think that all human women share this strength. And of course, we all share our humanity, which is why I'm sharing my story today. And while I'm being completely 100 with you all, I should tell you that putting out a new video each week is super stressful. So I'm going to keep trying, but I cannot promise it will always be done on the same day each week. I just have to be realistic with how much I can actually get done in a day and a week. I still have kids at home and I have a full-time job that I need to maintain in order to pay my bills. Once again, I will be breaking down this video into different segments with chapters in the description below. First, I'm briefly going to go over what ayahuasca is, in case you don't already know. Then I will tell you why I decided I needed to do this. Then I will go into exactly what happened while I was doing it. And finally, I will briefly talk about life since coming home. So, what is ayahuasca? Ayahuasca is a psychedelic brew traditionally used by indigenous Amazonian cultures. It's made from a combination of two main plants. The first is called Psychotria viridis or something. This plant contains dimethyltryptamine, otherwise known as DMT, which is a powerful psychedelic compound, which actually naturally occurs in our brains already, but normally when people take it, it only lasts a few seconds. But when you combine it with Banisteropsis caapi, which is a vine that contains monoamine oxidase inhibitors, or MAO inhibitors, it prevents the breakdown of DMT in your body. So when you put the plant with the vine, it creates a brew that induces potent and often transformative experience. The MAO inhibitors allow the DMT to reach the brain where it produces vivid hallucinations, altered states of consciousness, and deep emotional experiences. If you're interested in more about learning about ayahuasca, there are tons of video on YouTube that go deeper and talk about what it does to your brain and other people's experiences with it. So when you mix it together, it's actually a really terrible tasting drink. It literally tastes like dirt. But you gather around in the jungle at night with a bunch of strangers who also want a life-changing experience. There's a shaman there and hopefully a few other people there to help you while you are actually on the medicine. The shaman is the person that knows how to put the brew together and how to distribute it, and she will sing and play instruments all night to help you stay in your experience as long as possible. Usually it lasts a few hours, and this whole time there's no talking and no interacting with each other. Everyone is there to have their own experience, so even though there were couples that attended the retreat together, it wasn't like they were talking or anything during the actual ceremony. There was also a lot of preparation before the ceremony. They actually give you a list of foods that you can and cannot eat between 30 and 90 days before you go. There are also restrictions on smoking, drinking, medicine you take, and having sex. The reason is to cleanse your body before the ceremony so that you can get the best experience possible. So this isn't something that you can just go do on a weekend, and it is definitely something that you should really think about and do lots of research on before you just go do it. There were 11 people in my ceremony altogether, and we were actually still in touch even a year later. We did 3 ceremonies in the 1 week. We did it in Mexico, south of Cancun, in a town called Tulum. The retreat itself was really nice, and all of our meals were prepared for us, and we went on field trips together while we were there. Overall, it was like a super memorable trip, and I had a lot of fun, but I probably won't be doing ayahuasca ever again because it was just absolutely disgusting. Like, just yuck. Seriously, you really have to force this stuff down, and it's served in a very small cup. Think like a shot glass size. And depending on how you feel, you could have as much as or as little as you wanted. I think the most that I had was like 2 cups, and it just made me completely sick. Others had a lot more, like 5 or more. Ugh, it's crazy, but it didn't affect us all the same. So, more people need more and other people need less. All right, so that's what ayahuasca is. Now, why did I go on this journey? So I had actually been thinking about going ever since I heard about this stuff, which was a few years before I actually signed up, which is there's actually a lot of medical research on how psychedelics are being used to help cure people in their PTSD. It's also used for like cancer patients and people who are going to die and like all kinds of stuff. And when I saw this, I knew that I wanted to do it. Psychedelics don't just include ayahuasca, it's also mushrooms, MDMA, which is also known as ecstasy, LSD, mescaline, and probably others too. For instance, I know that Native Americans have been using peyote to go on vision quests for thousands of years. They don't generally share peyote with the white man though, and they don't let them get their hands on it, but there's still plenty of other things out there for us to try. I can't remember exactly what the documentary was that I was watching, but they were talking about using these psychedelics for helping people, and I had been dealing with chronic depression and PTSD for as long as I could remember. It had fluctuated through the years from sometimes being a dull, numbing ache in like the back of my mind to an up front all the time in my face, can't do anything right, all the way to actually being suicidal. So I was thinking that I would be willing to try any of these therapies. I had been on antidepressants for years, and it made my life okay, but not really good. And since this retreat a year ago and the cleanse beforehand, I haven't been on any antidepressants since, and life is much better. I also don't really like drink now either. Like, I mean, I will on occasion. It's like in a social situation, but not like I used to drink. I used to like really drink like every single night. So I feel like that's good too. So it's like a year and a half without any meds or booze, prescribed or otherwise. So yay. I guess I thought I wanted to try ayahuasca to see if it would help with my PTSD. And ultimately I would say that it has, even though I have gone to traditional therapy for years. Nothing like this made such a significant change in my life for the better so quickly. I'm not going to sit here and tell you that like I'm symptom free, but I can say that it's no longer defines me, who I am, or the things that I do in my daily life. I feel like I have like real direction now, although I'm still unsure of exactly where it's going to take me, but at least I feel like I'm moving forward now, which is, more than I could say before. For anyone else looking for like a quick one and done for their mental ailments, overall, I would recommend this and other psychedelic therapies like doing mushrooms, like microdosing. But I would warn strongly against trying to just go do them by yourself. Firstly, you never know what drugs you're actually getting if you just get them from the streets. The thought of people cutting things with fentanyl is so scary to me. And second, I would say that it's really important to have the right set and setting. And being with like a clinician or a shaman that knows what they're doing is critical to having a really good experience. So that's just my 2 cents on that. But anyway, juicy stuff. What was my ayahuasca experience like? Overall, we were in Mexico like 10 or 11 days, which was one day before the retreat and like a day or two after, which was really good because it gave us some time to like decompress before coming back home to our rat race, our kids and our jobs and everything. We had 3 nights of ceremonies in that week while we were there, and each one was completely different for me. I should mention, like, the whole time we were there, we didn't have phones, iPads, communication devices, no internet. So we were either like hanging out by ourselves or with the others in the retreat, getting to know each other. During the days, we would eat together. We'd have meals together. Like I said, they prepared them. We'd have breakfast, lunch, and dinner. And we'd spend time together in our circle. It was very like similar to like preschool. We would gather around in a circle and have like conversations. Our shaman during the day would teach us about the history of ayahuasca and Mother Earth. We learned about the elements such as fire, water, earth, and air, and how each of these are like important to us. We would sometimes do exercises or take a field trip that went along with the lesson that we were learning about. I believe these lessons actually had a great impact on the ceremonies, as I will try to point out when I talk about it. On the first day of the circle time, we gathered and talked about why we were there and what we wanted to work on. People, they were there for all types of different reasons. Some people were looking for their purpose in life. Some people were trying to fight addictions like drugs or alcohol or whatever. Others suffered from like similar things as myself. Others had other things going on in their lives, but we were all looking for help with something. And we obviously didn't really know what the ceremony was going to be like. There wasn't anybody there that had done it before that first night. So it's kind of like, getting our feet wet just to try it out that first night. So for me specifically, I can say the morning after the first night, I was pretty disappointed. I thought, oh my God, I had just paid a whole lot of money for literally nothing. I could go do drugs like this at home for way less. Why did I just come all the way down to Mexico and pay them all my money for nothing to happen? So allow me to explain. So if you watched my last video, then you will know that I was a Marine. And one of the reasons that I suffer from PTSD is that from my time in the Marine Corps and then going to Iraq twice. So part of my training is to always be on high alert. So that first night, that was all I was doing. I took the medicine and then I took some more. And at some points during the night, I couldn't really get up and move and stuff, but mostly I was still on high alert. I was watching everything. I was listening to everything. I was very aware of every other person there and every little noise outside. And I just couldn't get into the groove of the medicine or whatever. So it didn't actually do much for me. I actually went outside quite a few times that night to investigate what I was hearing and seeing, and I did puke, but that's just part of the medicine. I feel like, I guess I should say that not everybody pukes, but as the shaman will say, everyone will purge somehow. Some puke, some go number 2, some may laugh, some may cry or yawn or belch, whatever your body needs to purge, it will, and it gets rid of extra stuff that it's carrying. For me, I puked every time, but they give you these buckets to puke into, so it's not a huge deal. They actually expect it to happen. And a little more information, during that week, I actually started bleeding, and it wasn't even my time of the month, my cycle. It just, I was purging, so it just was happening. So note to women who go on a retreat to be prepared to, I wasn't, to bring some extra, pads or tampons or whatever you use for that to just happen unexpectedly. It was a very interesting effect overall, though. If you've never tried other psychedelic drugs, you do get visuals, and the sounds are all distorted. All of your senses are on overload and just working really hard, and at times you can't even stand or sit up. But at other times you want to move around. It's kind of really weird. It's sometimes it'd be an upper, sometimes it'd be a downer. Sometimes you're oh man, I'm really vibing with the earth, and other times you're just oh, let me just lay here and dig the music. So that night was the longest night. I think we started around 9 p.m. or so, and then we were done around 3 a.m. The other nights we came home, it was like 2 or 1, not that late. But everyone had to be back to normal, and we had to like be able to clean out our own puke buckets before we could go to bed for the night. So I waited around for everyone else that night to be good before we could go to bed. And I have to say, if that were like my only experience, I would have been super disappointed because I didn't have, any crazy enlightening experience. And at that time, it was like, okay, I took this medicine, my body rejected it, and literally nothing happened. I was so mad. I was like, this sucks. But the next day, we all shared our previous night's experience with a group. And when I shared, the feedback was like, oh, you have to let go. I'm like, okay, I'm not exactly sure what that means, but okay, I'll try again and I'll let go. Fortunately for me, we did our lesson that second day of ceremony on the element of water, and we actually got to go visit a cenote. So a cenote is like one of those underground cave pools. They're actually like all over Mexico, and this one we went to was epic. Like I loved it there. It was so serene and peaceful. At first I was kind of nervous because I'm not a super strong swimmer, but they gave us all these life jackets to wear, so it was totally good. The cave itself was super dark, like no light whatsoever. Even though we went in the middle of the day, it was underground, and there was just all these like stalactites and stalagmites everywhere that we had to avoid. But in the cave, like in the water, just floating in the dark, it was super peaceful. It reminded me of when I do floats here at home. Well, I mean, like not at home, but in DC where I live nearby, there is a float spa that I go to sometimes, that I would actually highly recommend to anyone looking for a really good way to float. Like get rid of your stress is to like go to these float spas. So the link to mine is actually in the description below if you're curious and if you live in the area. So floating, you're able to kind of let go for a short period of time, right? And let your brain just drift and like your stresses drift, because you're just laying there. You don't have to think about floating. It just happens naturally. And that's how I felt in the cenote. And I was like, okay, like this is what they meant by let go. So this is what I need to be able to tap into for the next ceremony. And I actually did. I was able to like use that, and I was like, holy cow, the next night ceremony was completely different than the first night. So once I was able to quiet my monkey brain and like let go, I really was able to go deep in the medicine and really experience what I came there for. And it took me for a ride that I was not expecting, nor could I have ever predicted what was going to happen. So only acutely aware this time of the others in the room that night and remembering what it was like to be floating, my mind started to flood with images of my past. And it turns out that my memories are filled with pain. And it all seemed to start coming out at once. Like it was literal flood of tears. I felt like Alice in Wonderland, when she's drowning in her own tears, unable to control them. All of a sudden, like the pain of my childhood, the pain of my abuse, the pain of losing people, the pain of war, all of it was just forefront in my mind. Who knows how long I actually cried. I was definitely, not quiet about it either. This was like a loud, sobbing kind of crying, that like the one I'm talking about where like you are just so loud. But as I was thinking, I was going deeper and I started to feel other emotions. I felt anger. I was angry at my boyfriend in high school for dying. It felt like he betrayed me. We were supposed to be together, but he left me. I was mad at my mom for allowing me to get hurt under her watch for so many years. I was obviously mad at my abuser too, but like it wasn't even that deep. But then I was mad at myself. And before I could control it, I was walking in this dark path toward myself. So like there I was, but not as I am today or even like a year ago, but it was me as a little girl. And she, or I was like curled up in this fetal position, just alone and scared. And it just seemed like she had been there just abandoned for so long. It was so surreal that this was happening. So I like went up to myself and I like talked, like no words were actually coming out of me out loud, or at least I don't think that they did. Who knows? This is all happening in my head. But the conversation that I had with myself was pretty straight to the point, like my inner child, right? How could you let this happen to me? And I was just beside myself, like literally, right? No. But I was like, like I didn't let it. I couldn't stop it. I did try. You remember we tried to stop this. There was nothing we could do. We were scared. We were young. We were alone. And, after talking to myself for a little while, I just came to the conclusion that I did do the best that I could have done, for an 8-year-old, which was not a whole lot. I don't know how deep I want to go into this episode, into the trauma of my sexual abuse. So I'm just going to quickly say that when you're in those situations, your brain is chemically designed to protect itself, which is, what's known as fight or flight. And there's plenty of times, I tried to fight my abuser, for all the good it did me. A little girl against a fully grown man, it doesn't really do much. So instead, I would flee. Instead I couldn't fight, I fled. I would do what's known as dissociation, which basically means to like zone out or go, like you leave your body, you go away from where you currently are, and you take your mind somewhere else, and you're not thinking about what's actually happening to your physical body. And that's how you survive that abuse. And that's how I survived for over 10 years of this abuse at home. Obviously that ends up fucking with you over time. And I'm really sorry to anyone who didn't come here to hear about all that, but this is what I mean about being vulnerable. I want to share everything with you so that you can use this for your own healing. If you're uncomfortable, you can skip forward or not listen. But so anyway, here I am having this conversation with myself, talking about how I did the best that I could have done. I disassociated. I did drugs, a lot of them. I kept myself busy at school and with friends, and I didn't have time to be at home all the time. Like I literally wasn't home unless I had to. Like sometimes I had to be home to babysit my little brother. But if I didn't, I was gone. I was spending the night at friends' houses. Like everything I could do to not be at home when I couldn't. I did everything that I could think of to do except what our teachers and the PSAs tell us to do, which is to tell somebody. I actually did kind of tell a few people, but that actually backfired, and I can talk about that more in another video. But anyway, so I was able to walk through this conversation with myself, and I ended up forgiving myself. So, little person me, little inner child Renee, was forgave me for trying. And I was like, just wow, okay. So, what does that mean? So of all the years that I went to talk therapy, hearing about how you have to move on, forgive your abusers, forgive what happened to you, how it wasn't your fault. Yeah, okay, sure. But none of that actually ever made me feel any better. I know it wasn't my fault. I was freaking 8 years old. I have kids. They can't do anything at that age. They'll believe whatever you tell them. What did you expect me as an 8-year-old to do? But, no one ever really told me that I need to, or explained to my, forgiving myself. And this forgiveness was exactly what I needed. I needed my own forgiveness. I needed to forgive myself for not doing more, for not knowing any better, for trying to protect myself the best way that I knew how to do. Whether or not that was actually good for me or not, I did the best I could do. This realization was immense and intense. All of a sudden, there was literally this weight lifted off of me. And I was able to just see past just me. And I thought of my own kids and my mom too. Like this whole time I'm actually lying down in the fetal position, covered with a blanket, but in my mind, I was sitting there having this conversation. But when I started to think about, like being a parent and how my mom allowed all this to happen, it just came to me like, oh shit, she was also just doing the best that she knew how to do. I do plan on getting more into the subject of my mother, like deeper in another episode, but yeah, I mean, she did, she tried, she just didn't know how to do any better. I think, we all are. None of us know what we're doing. We're all just trying the best we can. And if there's like one takeaway from this episode that I want you to walk away with and remember is that, like, we are all human. We're all still learning. We can't dwell on our past and your mistakes. You have to keep moving. And I know that's a lot to take in. And I feel like this video is turning out way longer than I intended. So, thanks for staying here with me. But there was still like one more night of ceremony left to do. And I felt really great. Like I felt like I had this major breakthrough that years of therapy hadn't been able to help with. And what more was there to do? Well, turns out there was still more to do. So that day we learned about air, and we did these deep breathing exercises, not just like, taking deep breaths. I'm talking like crazy, hippy dippy, weird breathing stuff. And it was freaking awesome. Like I would definitely recommend this for people, like just to try. Like our bodies are amazing. And if you can control your breath in certain ways, you can make it just feel so good. Like I'm so serious. Like I think it just has to do with like the amount of oxygen going to the brain or something, but like it was nearly orgasmic just from breathing. It cured me of the headache that I was having at that moment. And like, I would never think that like just breathing could make me feel good, but it just made me feel great. And so that night, our last night of the ceremony, and for whatever reason, I decided that I wanted to wear earplugs that night because the music that had been going on like during the other ceremonies like was too loud, and I wanted it to be quieter, so I felt like I could go deeper. This was like both true and not true at the same time. The overall experience that night wasn't as deep as the second one, but I feel like my stomach was like really messing up, but was still more like than the first night. So I remember that I had like a similar kind of flood of emotions, but like this time I wasn't crying like I had before. This time, like I was yawning, like a crazy amount of yawns. And they were like really loud and annoying too, just like, just really loud, just over and over. Like I wonder if it was because of the breathing exercise earlier. I don't know. Like I just couldn't stop yawning. Doesn't matter. Anyway, so once I found like my way and like I got into that whole like vibe of like letting go, shutting down my monkey brain, I was in this room, in my brain, I was in my mind, and there was these boxes, just like old shabby cardboard boxes, like piled away, put like, like you would find in like an old basement or something, just like dusty sitting there. So I went over to them and I started opening them up. Like it was so like real. I was opening them up, and inside each box, there was like all this old shit that I had been burying in my head. You know how people kind of say like, oh, you can't just like box up your emotions, you have to deal with them. I apparently spent a very long time boxing my emotions away. And my mind is very literal because there they were all boxed up, like in boxes. It was very funny. I don't know how my brain came up with this, but anyway, they were like very tired. You just put away like old cobwebs, like I said. Anyway, so I started digging through them, and it was like, I was like, what am I going to do with this stuff? I don't need this anymore. I can't just leave it here. Like it's all just old. It's just sitting here doing nothing. Like, what am I going to do with it? So I took some stuff out to like put away for later. But then like when I got to the worst stuff, I kind of like looked at it and I was like, okay, this stuff has been holding me back for years. and I don't need it anymore. I need to get rid of it. So I walked it outside. And once again, like I didn't physically move. Like this is all happening in my brain. I walked it outside, and I started digging holes. And like, you know, there was like all this, the abuse, the war, the deaths, like all the bad shit that's happened to me, right? And my overdose, like these things that happened to me in my past. Anyway, I dug a hole for each one, and I buried it. And I put the shovel, and I put the hole, and I put it in there, and I buried it, and I put like little gravestones on it, and I gave, its own funeral. It's kind of funny, but I think that was like my way of saying, like, these things aren't going to control my life anymore, and they're not going to hold me back from what I'm supposed to be doing with my life. So that night I felt like very like in sync with the earth. So during the day we had been, like one of the days we'd been talking about earth as an element, about the vibrations and Mother Earth. And that night I could literally feel the earth's vibrations. And I was like, wow, for so long, I've never even noticed this. I have not been in sync with the earth. I need to start feeling like this more often in my life. I need to change my life now. So like I have known for a very long time that I was unhappy with my day job. And I was especially unhappy when I worked for the DoD. But ultimately I need to find my calling. And I need to feel like, since the retreat, I've been trying to figure that out, like what that means. I've had so many ideas and I've explored so many things. And right now this YouTube channel is one of those things. So I don't know if it's actually gonna like stick around. I'm kind of just like throwing things at the wall to see what sticks right now. But ultimately, I know where I want my life to be. But the path to get there is still kind of like unknown. So that's what I spent the rest of that evening kind of thinking about. So I spent a lot of the night, like just in my own head, like thinking about like how I can kind of be a better person or whatever. And, I was all about like doing what's natural, doing what feels good, not doing like when I'm just having a job and working and, just I needed to do something for myself. So when the evening was over, I barely even noticed because I was wearing the earplugs and I wasn't like aware what was going on in the room around me. But anyway, so that was the third night. And then, we had a couple of days to decompress at the retreat and then we came home. But okay, so that was basically my experience, the ayahuasca. But, so now that I'm home, right, it's been over a year. What's changed? What's different? I can say that obviously I'm the same person. People that know me generally, they, haven't changed. Like they haven't noticed like huge differences in like my personality or anything. But there's little things that definitely have changed. My diet's changed. So, when we were getting ready for the retreat, we couldn't have red meat, and I just stayed doing no red meat. So I just like eat chicken and fish, if I even have meat at all. But like one of the reasons, like I don't know if it's like the dopamine receptors in my brain just changed during the ceremonies or what, but like things I used to enjoy before the ceremonies, they don't do it for me anymore. Like they're just not good anymore. Like drinking, I used to love to drink like all the time, every night. I'm telling you, like now I just don't want to do it like at all. There's no desire. It just seems like a waste of time and money now. Like, why am I going to do that? I don't need that to feel good. I feel fine. The same goes with like other things that I used to spend time and money on, like going out to eat, like going into nice restaurants and stuff. We would like spend so much money and time, like going to these fancy restaurants, like trying fancy food and stuff. But like, I don't even care anymore. Like, there's just no desire. Everything, like diet, like, how do I say? Like, overall, it's like my brain's like, what's actually important to me in my life? And food is just food, it's just fuel. It can be cheap or whatever. Like, it doesn't really matter. Like, you should put healthy stuff in your body, but like, it's generally just fuel. So when I do like eat red meat now, like I can really tell it hurts my stomach. So I don't really eat that as much. But I mentioned before and earlier that I'm no longer on antidepressants. The only medicines I take now are multivitamins and like the occasional like Motrin, like for aches and pains or whatever. Depression like no longer controls me. And I try to spend my life doing what I actually enjoy doing, and I try to incorporate these things into how I can use the things that I enjoy to pay my bills and feed my family. Like, if I can figure out a way to do the things that I enjoy doing and still take care of my family, then that's what I want to be doing. So, like, here's some examples of things that bring me joy. Spending time with my family and friends, like not the fake friends, but like the real homies, like the ride or die type, like the ones that like love you no matter what. Those friends, those family. Playing soccer. I like crocheting. I like cleaning, doing puzzles, building Legos, exercising. Now, like I'm not like a crazy exercise person, but like I enjoy exercising. It gives me like some dopamine rushes. Generally, I still don't really like being around a bunch of people. Like that was like a thing that I had with PTSD. So I like really, I avoid like crowds when I can. And I'm really more of like a homebody anyway, which, I used to think was bad, but I didn't realize it was just like the type of person I am. It's not bad or good. It's just like, some people like going out and having like doing things with crowds and like places, and some people don't. And I don't, so it's fine. So some of these things are things that I plan on like recording myself doing for my channel here, so you can like, enjoy them too, so hopefully. I think that once I get more feedback from viewers that like on like what content they like more, I can kind of move more in that direction. But there's other things that have changed too. Like before, I never really thought about my future. Well, not like serious anyway. Like I would think about like what's the next thing that I'm gonna do, like right now. Like in high school is like, what am I gonna do right after high school? I talked about boot camp and not thinking seriously about the next 4 years or after the Marine Corps is over. I've never really thought about it. Like, I just like work, pay my bills, take care of the kids, and not really think about what I wanted to be doing. More just like, these are my responsibilities. I'm taking care of them. And now that I have that weight lifted off of me, I feel like I'm more grounded. And I've realized that like what is actually important to me now and what it is that I want to do in the future. And it feels incredible. I know my husband, he's like the opposite type of person. He's always been this like dreamer type person that has all these goals and things that he's wanted to accomplish, which is, great. But I guess it was like all my baggage or whatever that I have been carrying around, but I never had time, I guess, for all that thinking. It was more of just like, okay, work, eat, pay bills, sleep, take care of kids. That was it. Like mission driven, no fun, more of just like, just get shit done. Now I'm like this whole new person. So I have like things that I want to do. So not to say like I'm super happy or anything either. Like I don't sit around smiling all the time. So I think it's really important to distinguish the difference in being not depressed. Like I don't feel depressed anymore. I don't feel like depression controls me, but being happy in general, like I feel like that's completely different. So I'm still not like happy. My daily job sucks. I'm not where I want to be in my physical body shape or even geographically. But these are all things that I can change. And I've started to think about, how I'm going to change them for the better. I've got plans in place so that these things are going to change so that I can be that happier person. You know what I mean? I don't know. Maybe you don't. I also know that I have this like overwhelming feeling about life and everything in it of like, what is the point of life? Now, I know that sounds like very nihilistic, or like my kids like to say that I'm having an existential crisis, but I don't really see it as a crisis. I'm not like, woe is me. It's more like, what's the point? For example, why do we need fancy clothes and cars? And why do we need to wear makeup and eat certain things and do certain things? Like, in the end, no matter what, we all just die. We end up returning to the earth, and things, we just leave them behind. So do we really need them? This has been my general vibe now, like since getting back, and I don't really see it as changing, but it's not really like a bad thing either. Like, I also have this new burning inside of me to do, like, I have to help people now. Like, I really want to help people. Like, that's another reason why I'm here on YouTube. Like, the purpose of this channel is to help others. I want to help them clean. I want to help them with their trauma. I want to help them with boredom, like whatever. But I have to be helping people. I have been giving to homeless more. Like, I didn't used to do this before, like give money to homeless. I would like be like, oh no, he's just gonna go buy drugs or something. But every time I see them now, there's no more judgment there. There's just this like overwhelming desire to help them somehow. And I have some more really great ideas of how I want to do that in the future too. But it's like, okay, I need to make money to figure this out. But anyway, I feel like I've like talked your ear off now. So if you want to change your life too, I've linked some stuff below in the description. If you're interested in the retreat that I went on, even if you don't want to do ayahuasca, they do some other stuff. But I linked the retreat information down, and there's some book recommendations. So one is a book called A Really Good Day, and this lady like talks about her experiences microdosing with LSD. And she does a really good job like explaining the science behind it. It's a really quick read, easy. And then a couple self-help books, honestly, but they're by Mark Manson and they're pretty popular. And these will help you get like a better perspective on like what's actually important in life. These are kind of popular, so you may have heard of them, but I really enjoy them and do think that they're worth a read. So those links are also down in the description. And those of you who live in the DC area, I put a link down there for the float spa I go to. I love it there. Shout out to Pedramine, who's the owner. And thanks again for listening, liking, sharing, subscribing, and all that jazz. Talk to you later. Bye.